Hello, thank you for listening. My name is Zhang Lei, and I want to tell you a story from a time when I was just 26 years old, a lifetime ago. Before the war, my world was simple. It was the sharp scent of pine after rain, the feel of damp earth under my boots, the patient silence of the mountains. I was a hunter, a trapper. My father taught me, as his father taught him, to listen, not with my ears, but with my whole body. The snap of a twig, the direction of the wind carrying a scent, the faint depression in the leaves where a wild boar had passed hours before. That was my language. The mountains spoke, and I understood. I believed every living thing left a trail, a story of where it had been and where it was going. I thought this was a universal truth. The war taught me about places where the truth dies. People ask me what it was like to become a soldier. They imagine a sudden change, a uniform and a rifle making you into something new. For me, it was not like that. They simply pointed my skills in a new direction. The patience I learned waiting for a skittish deer became the patience for sighting a target. The camouflage of leaves and mud became the torn cloth of a uniform against rubble. But a hunter needs his forest. What happens when the forest is gone? What happens when it is replaced by a graveyard of brick and iron? A place that has no life, no wind, no language you understand. In the winter of 1943, in the skeletal ruins of Changde, I found out. The air didn't move right, that was the first thing. In the mountains, the wind is a living thing. It flows, it finds paths through valleys and around ancient trees. It carries warnings and promises. In Changde, the air was a dead weight, thick with the ghosts of 1,000 fires, the smell of cold ash, rot, and something metallic and sweet that clung to the back of your throat. It was the smell of a city that had its heart ripped out. My lungs, accustomed to the clean, sharp air of Hubei, felt heavy, clogged. I remember crouching behind a wall that used to belong to someone's kitchen. Blue tiles, cracked and filmed with gray dust, still clung to the plaster. A child's toy, a little wooden horse, lay on its side in the gutter, its paint peeling. It was a forest of ghosts. My officer, a young man from the city with smooth hands and eyes that were always tired, had unrolled a map on a crate. His words were sharp, clipped. "He is here," he'd said, tapping a red circle. A colonel. His command post moves, but he's in this sector. He's the brain. The pack is nothing without its tiger. You Zhang Lei, you are our hunter. Find the tiger. He folded the map and looked at me. He saw a man in a worn-out uniform holding an old rifle with a German scope. He didn't see me. He didn't understand. A map is a dead thing, lines on paper. A hunter doesn't use a map. He reads the land. And this land was screaming in a language I didn't know. For 2 days I was a ghost. I moved not like a soldier, but like a predator testing new ground. My feet, wrapped in cloth over my worn boots, made no sound on the shattered glass that littered the streets like frozen rain. I didn't look for soldiers, I looked for signs. The language was different, but the principles were the same. In the forest, you look for a game trail, a path of least resistance. Here it was a path through the rubble that was slightly more worn than the others. A trail of brass casings from a specific type of machine gun that only officers' guards carried. The droppings of a predator. My world shrank to the size of my rifle scope. The city became a series of sightlines, firing angles, fields of fire. A broken window was a hiding spot, a pile of rubble, a sniper's nest. I ate cold rations of rice and salted fish, the taste of it alien in my mouth. My tongue longed for the wild herbs and mushrooms of my home. My body ached for the feel of a pine needle bed, not the cold, unyielding stone of a dead city. At night I would close my eyes and try to summon the sounds of my mountains, the call of an owl, the rustle of leaves. But all I heard was the scuttling of rats, the true kings of this new jungle, and the distant, percussive cough of artillery. It was a constant, dull heartbeat, the heartbeat of the monster that had eaten this place. On the 3rd day I found the first real track. It wasn't in the dirt, it was in the dust. On the marble floor of a ruined bank there was a set of prints. Most were the hobnailed boots of common soldiers, scattered, hurried, but one set was different. The boot was of a higher quality, the tread finer, and the stride, it was measured, confident. Not the walk of a man fighting for his life, but of a man who owned the ground he walked on. This was not a wolf, this was the tiger. He was here. I began to stalk him. The process was the same as tracking a prize stag. You learn its habits. Where does it drink? Where does it rest? I found a small, sheltered courtyard where a field telephone had been set up. Discarded cigarette butts, a brand I knew was favored by their officers, littered the ground. They had been here, recently. The air still held the faint, bitter scent of their smoke. I found a discarded food tin, its contents eaten cleanly. This tiger was well fed, comfortable even in this hell. He was arrogant, and arrogance makes a creature predictable. My hiding place was the third floor of what used to be a department store. Mannequins, their painted smiles covered in grime, lay in heaps like corpses. I positioned myself near a shattered window, my view covering the courtyard below. And then I waited. Patience is a hunter's greatest weapon. The sun crawled across the sky, its light a sickly yellow through the haze of dust. My body became stone. My breathing slowed until it was almost nothing. My mind emptied of everything but the scene below. I was no longer Zhang Lei, the boy from the Daba mountains. I was just eyes, a trigger finger, a purpose. It was near dusk when they arrived. The light was failing, turning everything to shades of gray. First, the guards, 4 of them. They moved with a tense efficiency, checking the corners, the rooftops. Then he appeared, the colonel. He was shorter than I expected, but he carried himself like a tall man. His uniform was clean, his boots polished. He held a map case under his arm. He stood in the center of the courtyard, pointing, giving orders. His voice was a low murmur I couldn't hear, but I could read its authority in the way the other men listened. This was the moment. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. It was the same calm that always settled over me in the final seconds of a hunt, the quiet understanding between predator and prey. I breathed out slowly, emptying my lungs. The world disappeared, collapsing into the small, circular frame of my scope. The crosshairs found his chest, right over the pocket of his tunic. He turned, his face clear for a single, eternal second. He looked young, tired. For a moment a phantom scent filled my nostrils, not gunpowder and death, but damp earth and pine. I saw, not a Japanese officer, but the great black boar I had tracked for a week in the mountains 2 years before. The feeling was the same. A strange, cold respect for a worthy adversary, a sadness that this beautiful, powerful thing had to die. But the feeling was a ghost, a memory from a world that no longer existed. I squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle was obscene in the silence. It was impossibly loud, a sound of profound violence that ripped the dead air apart. Through the scope, I saw the colonel jolt, a puppet whose strings had been cut. A small, dark flower bloomed on his chest. He fell. He didn't cry out, he just ended. The tiger was dead. Chaos erupted. The guards shouted, firing blindly into the ruins, but I was already gone. I moved backwards, melting into the shadows of the department store, down broken stairs, through gaping holes in walls. I didn't run, I flowed. Another lesson from the forest. A panicked creature makes noise, leaves a trail. I became smoke. By the time I reached my own lines, the moon was high and the city was quiet again, digesting its latest meal. They called me a hero. They slapped my back. The young officer with the smooth hands shook my hand and promised me a medal. I just nodded. I couldn't find the words. I had done my job. I had completed the hunt, but there was no satisfaction. When I killed the great boar in the mountains, we honored it. We used every part of it. The kill had meaning. It was part of the cycle of life and death that sustained my people. This was different. I had killed a man I did not know, in a place that meant nothing to me, and it felt like extermination. Like stepping on an insect. There was no honor, no cycle, just a hollow, empty space where a life used to be. I had used the sacred skills of my ancestors to perform a profane act, and I felt filthy. I spent the rest of the war as a hunter, but I never again felt the clean thrill of the chase. My home, the real one, the one made of trees and rock and sky, felt distant, like a dream I was slowly forgetting. I had learned the language of the ruins too well. The scent of dust and cordite had burrowed deep into my memory, and sometimes, even now, I can taste it on the wind. I eventually returned to my mountains. I tried to hunt again to find the man I was before, but the forest felt different, or maybe I was different. When I looked at a deer through my sights, I saw the face of the colonel in the Changde courtyard. The silence of the woods was no longer peaceful. It was filled with the echo of that single shot. I had brought the ghost of the city back with me, and it haunted my sacred ground. I learned then that you can take a hunter out of the forest, but you can't always take the battlefield out of the hunter. Some tracks, you see, you can never erase. They follow you for the rest of your life. The hardest lesson is this. War teaches you to survive in places you were never meant to be. It can twist your greatest strengths into tools for its own terrible purpose. And when it's over, you might find that the part of you that learned to thrive in the ruins can no longer remember how to live in the garden. You kill the tiger, but you find you've become a different kind of animal yourself, one that no longer belongs anywhere. This memory is a cold trail I have walked my whole life. Sharing it makes the burden a little lighter. Help me carry it, subscribe, and ensure these stories are never left to fade into silence.